find out who the 2024 Big Ten preseason favorite is? From top contenders to dark horses, I've got all the stats, all the analytics, and the best predictions you need to get hyped for the 2024 Big Ten football season. Let's go into it, guys, and let's take a deep dive. Starting at the bottom, we're going to go to Indiana. These are the composite analytics rankings for all the 85 or so power-rated teams out there, including Massey, Sagarin, ESPN, FBI. This is a composite combination, the average of all of these team ratings, and this is where they rated. And here, I got the bottom, I have my predictions of how these teams going to finish. Indiana's 18th. Once again, I don't think they have much of a chance to finish even close to this new expanded Big Ten. They play Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Washington, and Maryland. I think the only conference win they get to this entire season will be in the final game against Purdue and their rival. I still think they finish 4-8 outside of bowl contention. They do not do much to be a contender in the Big Ten this year. Number 17 at Michigan State, a team that everybody is saying is going to be a contender this year with Aiden Childs, a new quarterback coming in. They have a lot of hype going into the season. Everybody's all antsied up with East Lansing. I still think the only conference win they get is against Indiana. They have to play Ohio State. They got to play on the road at Oregon. They have to play Iowa. Of course, they play Michigan. They play on the road at Illinois. They play Purdue and Rutgers. Rutgers is going to be a good team. I think Michigan State does not get to a bowl game again. They don't have much returning production. They're 82nd. Overall, nationally ranked, they're 64th. Strength of schedule isn't too hard, but it's not an easy one either. I don't think Michigan State gets even close to even being a bowl eligibility. They will be a non-factor in the Big Ten come the 2024 season. Up next, Northwestern, a team that surprised a lot of people last year, especially in the preseason firing of their coach, longtime coach, Pat Fitzgerald. They were picked to finish last in the Big Ten. They won 8 games. They won their bowl game against Utah. This year they're rated 58th nationally, 35th strength of schedule, kind of mid strength of schedule, middle of the road returning production. I don't think they're going to do much. I think they're going to finish 2-7 in conference, 4-8 overall. Not going to be a factor in anything come Big Ten time, and they're going to be an afterthought come November. Illinois, number 15. 57th nationally, 41st overall in strength of schedule, 66th in returning production. Another team in the Big Ten that's going to finish in the bottom quarter of the conference. I don't think they're going to make a bowl game. They're going to finish 3-6. They're going to beat 3 easy teams against Purdue, Michigan State, and I think they're going to beat Northwestern. But I don't think they make a bowl game. I don't think Illinois is going to be a non-factor this season. Number 15 in the preseason rankings. Number 14 is Purdue, nationally ranked 54th, but their strength of schedule is number 9 in the entire country. I think because of this, they don't have much returning production. I think they only get to 3-9 overall. They get to only 2 wins in conference, 2-7. I think those wins would be against Michigan State and Northwestern. I mean, when you play Notre Dame, Wisconsin on the road, Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State, I mean, that is a brutal stretch there of those 6 weeks. I think Purdue does not even get close to a bowl game. They finished 3-9, subpar again. Do not return to the glory days of the 2022 Big Ten Championship game season. Number 13, Rutgers, a team that is due to break out again. I think last year they finished 7-6, won their bowl game. This year, their preseason rated 53rd nationally. They have an easier strength of schedule, one of the bottom 10 easiest in the Power 4, and they have the 13th most returning production for their team. Passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards, and tackles/interceptions on the defense. They have the number 13th overall. I think they get to 7 wins in conference. They even get to 5 wins in the new expanded Big Ten. I think they beat Washington, they beat UCLA, beat Minnesota, Illinois, and at Michigan State. They have a pretty decent year. Greg Schiano's 4th year in for the Scarlet Knights, and I think they have some momentum going into the 2025 season. Number 12, Minnesota Golden Gophers, team that finished 5-7 last year, won their bowl game. Their preseason rated 52nd overall this year. I don't think, even with the returning production at 19, they lost their quarterback, who was absolutely awful. Whoever their quarterback is this year, I don't think he's going to do much better. I think they finished 2-7 in conference. They go 3-0 in the non-conference, including that win week 1 against North Carolina, but that's not helping in the momentum for the rest of the season. They still going to play Michigan, USC, UCLA, Illinois, Rutgers, and Penn State, and at Wisconsin. Not a favorable schedule for the Golden Gophers. I think they don't get the bowl eligibility yet in finish below 500 for the second consecutive season. Number 11, the Maryland Terrapins, a team that had a chance the last 3 years with their quarterback Taulua Tagovailoa to make some noise, get to 8 wins, possibly 9 wins, and get to one of those upsets in the Big Ten. They never got past that. They always played down to their opponents, lost some easy games that they should have won. They could have finished 9-3 3 consecutive years, but it could have had an upset against Ohio State or Michigan a couple times. They just could not get the job done. And I think this year is going to be another mid-season for them. I think they finished 75 overall. I think they're going to go 3-0 in non-conference. It's pretty easy against UConn, Virginia, and Villanova. Their strength of schedule is not too hard, but I don't think they're going to do much damage. They have the 102nd most returning production in the country. Not too much else to say about the Maryland Terrapins. Another mid-year, another disappointing year for a team that could possibly make some noise, but they just won't. Number 10, Nebraska, another team that's due to break out, just like the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. I think that this is their year. They finally get back to a bowl eligibility. They're 48th nationally, have the 20th most returning production, and I think they're going to finish with a winning record in the Big Ten, being that they have an easier strength of schedule than most in the conference. I think they get it done against Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana, and UCLA. Even though they still have to play Ohio State, Southern Cal, and Iowa, I still think they're going to get to 7 wins this year. That game against Colorado week 2 could be a toss-up. I mean, if they win that, though, they could have a chance to get to 8 wins. So we'll just have to see what happens with that one. But I do believe Nebraska is a team that they will get to bowl eligibility in Matt Rule's second year at the helm. Number 9, UCLA Bruins, a team that is 38th nationally. They finished 8-5 last year, but they had the 5th hardest strength of schedule in all of college football. And they're non-conference. They play Hawaii. They have a really tough game against LSU, and they also finish against Fresno State. But their conference schedule: Oregon, at Penn State, at Rutgers, at Nebraska, Iowa, Washington, and Southern Cal. I mean, that is a brutal schedule, and I don't think they're going to do much. I think they're going to finish at most 2 wins in the Big Ten, and as a new member of the conference. I don't think UCLA is going to do much to make any noise this year. I think it's going to be a non-bowl, subpar 4-8 season for the Bruins in their first year in the new Big Ten. Number 8, Wisconsin, a team that needs to return back to its glory days of the mid to late 2010s. I think they're going to have a decent year, but I think it's not going to be a good year. I think 7-5 is the absolute cap of what the team's going to go. They have the 12th hardest strength of schedule in the entire country, one of the hardest in the Power 4. They play Alabama week 3 at home, which I think if they upset that team, that will set the tone for the rest of the season. They could get to 9, possibly 10 wins if they somehow beat Alabama. But I don't think they will. I think they're going to have a tough road ahead of them. They have some easy games against Purdue. I think they beat Rutgers. I think they beat Northwestern. They finished out against Minnesota. But games against USC, Penn State, Iowa, and Oregon, I think those are going to be guaranteed losses for them. I think at most they finish with 5 wins in the Big Ten. Another subpar year for the Badgers up there in Madison, Wisconsin. Number 7, the Iowa Hawkeyes, a team that completely should not have been anywhere close to the conference championship game last year. Lost their quarterback, lost their possibly the best player in all of the conference, Cooper DeJean, and lost a couple of their tight ends, a couple of offensive stars, and still got the 10 wins last year. It's an absolute remarkable feat in and of itself. I think they have the 10th most returning production. Cade McNamara returns. He's definitely going to be an upgrade over any quarterback they've had each of the last 3 years. And I think Iowa gets to 9-3 this year, 7-2 in conference. The 2 tough games they play, I think they will lose, will be at Ohio State, and I think they'll lose at Maryland. But other than that, I think they have a pretty good chance at the rest of their games. I mean, Minnesota, Michigan State, Washington, Northwestern, Wisconsin, UCLA, and Nebraska. I think they get those 7 wins, and I think they're going to be a long shot to be in the Big Ten championship game if a couple teams were to falter. But they get the 9 wins in Kirk Ferentz once again rolls the dice and creates magic with this Iowa team. Number 6, the Washington Huskies, a team that, if you see right here, I mean, there's no denying that this team lost everybody. They lost all 11 starters on the offense. They have 125th rated in returning production, and they have the 18th hardest strength of schedule in all the country. I think at most, this team can get to 6-6. I think they won all 3 of their non-conference games against Weber State, Western Michigan, and Washington State. But the Big Ten is just so deep this year. I don't see them doing much. I think they're going to be rated preseason, highly rated, and I think they're going to falter, and they at most get the 6 wins in their first year in the Big Ten. Coming in at the top 5, USC, 8-5 last year, nationally rated 18th this year, the second hardest strength of schedule in all of college football. I think they somehow still get to 8-4, 7-2 overall in conference. The only 2 losses would be to Penn State and at Michigan. I think the rest of the way, though, they have a pretty favorable matchup in the rest of their games. Wisconsin, at Minnesota, at Maryland, Rutgers, Washington, Nebraska, and at UCLA. I think they lose to both LSU and Notre Dame, but they take the game against Utah State. And I don't know. Another outside chance, just like Iowa has, if they get to 7-2, if one of the top 4 teams falter to get in the Big Ten championship game. I think they're going to be a pretty decent year in their first year in the Big Ten for the Southern Cal Trojans. Number 4, Penn State, a team that has been on the cusp. All they needed to do was beat one of Michigan or Ohio State each of the last 2 years, and everybody would take this team way more seriously. But they just cannot get it done in the last 2 years. James Franklin has faltered in the big games, every single big game he's had. If there's ever a year for Penn State to make it into the CFP, finally, after 10 years, this is the year. Penn State has a 43rd rated strength of schedule overall. They have a 37th most returning production, which is really good for that a Big Ten team. And they have a favorable schedule. I think at most, the hardest team they have to play is Ohio State. Other than that, the lowest chance of win they have the rest of the season is at USC. That is still a 70% chance of winning. I think this team has a legit chance of going 11-1 and not only making getting an outside chance of the CFP, but possibly making the Big Ten championship game. And I mean, if you make the conference championship game in the Big Ten, you're almost a guaranteed slot in the CFP this year. Number 3, Michigan in the preseason rankings. Last year, obviously the defending reigning national champs, they come in as number 6 nationally preseason. Kind of a reverse of the last 2 years. Last 2 years they have one of the weakest non-conference schedules, and even in conference they had a weak schedule before their couple of big teams they played. This year they have the 17th hardest strength of schedule in the entire country. They play Fresno State and Arkansas State, but they get Texas week 2 of that noon game. That's going to be a key to see how the rest of the season goes for both teams, both Texas and Michigan. I think Michigan at best finishes 9-3. Or at worst they finish 8-4. I think the real record would be 9-3. They have 126th most returning production. I mean, that's like 6th fewest in the entire country. They lost their quarterback, their running back, their 2 receivers. They lost a lot of their defensive backs, their linebackers, the D line. They still have a lot of people returning. I think Michigan has one of the best, if not the best, defense returning in the country. But I still think they are going to lose to Texas, Oregon, and I think Ohio State finally gets back on track and beats them this year. Number 2, the Oregon Ducks, a team that has never won a national championship, but everybody is picking them as a dark horse to not only make the CFP, but finally win a CFP national championship this year. Coming in as number 4 preseason overall, 16th rated, hardest strength of schedule. I think the only game they lose is to Ohio State in that Week 7 matchup. Dylan Gabriel is obviously going to be a boost to this team. That's the only conference loss, only loss in the season. And, I mean, there's not much else to say. This is one of the best teams in the entire country. And I think them losing to Ohio State will set up a rematch for them because Ohio State will be the number 1 team in the Big Ten. They're 33rd ranked nationally. They have the 50th rated strength of schedule overall. And I think they go undefeated in the regular season. They win every game. They beat Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State, and they get it done against Michigan. They make it to the Big Ten championship game. They're easily one of the 4 best teams in the entire country, and I think they're going to be one of the top 4 teams to get a bye in the CFP. I think Oregon and Ohio State will be the matchup, and I cannot predict who will win that game. I think Ohio State beats them in the regular season. It's anybody's guess who wins in the rematch, but I think those 2 teams will be the representatives for the Big Ten in the 2024 Conference Championship game. That is your breakdown for the Big Ten for the 2024 preseason. Do you agree with these rankings, or do you think some surprises will be on the horizon? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the Power 4 conferences. See you in the next video.